how has the nature of leadership changed? I mean, how has the task changed? It seems to me things might have been different 30 or 40 years ago, whereas you look forward and there are things you mentioned, social media. It is something we never had to deal with, say at the beginning of the Concord Coalition. It didn't exist until fairly recently. But so are the future leaders, do you think, I mean, is there a different skill set that they need to learn from what leaders, say, 20 years ago were?
Yeah, it's a very good point. And the answer to this, I think very strongly that leadership has evolved a great deal. The demands of leadership are quite different in many ways than they have been. First and foremost, the world is changing so rapidly that it's hard for people to know what's hitting us. I've just been reading a book that I called "The Great Narrative for a Better Future." It's by Klaus Schwab, who runs the World Economic Forum in Davos, and it's a serious look at what the world is now facing. And it goes into, if I might add, public financing and the debt crisis is building up. But there's just no question that what we're facing is so much more serious for leaders, and we're coming into a climactic period when the choices we make, say on the environment, are going to make a huge difference for our grandkids. We're either going to condemn them to having an environment that's out of control, and we hit not just 1.5%, 1.5 increase in temperature levels, but we get up to 2 or 3%, and that's going to be devastating if that happens. And if we don't choose to go the other path, and part of that is about being disciplined about our finances. If we don't choose to do that well, we're gonna leave one hell of a mess. But we have those small windows still left. I think that if we really got serious about it and we had strong leadership, effective leadership, people of character to lead this, people we could look up to and admire, and we could take our children and say that you ought to listen to that woman or that man, because there's what you might like to be someday. But most people don't want their kids going into politics now. They see it as a dirty place, and you get soiled, and you're inevitably around people who are on the make, and you got all these lobbyists and everything. It's really hard to create a sense of respect. One measure today, like Trump, and we now see it with Biden, and we've seen it before with last couple of presidents before that. Their approval ratings were all down in the 40s, or low 40s, and it's really hard to get anything done when you're there. President Eisenhower was in office for 8 years, and you know what his average approval rating was? Over 8 years, 64%.
Wow.
4%. And think how different that is. When Eisenhower went on television, because he was so respected, a quarter to half the people in the country said he's Eisenhower. He's obviously right, and he's telling us the truth. I mean, I went through 8 years, and there was one big mistake he made when Francis Gary Powers was shot down as a pilot over the Soviet Union. And Eisenhower went out and proclaimed, that he was there on some sort of other mission and so forth. And the Americans thought that Francis Gary Powers was dead. His plane was destroyed and everything like that. Actually, he was alive. They'd captured him. They had kept him in captivity until Eisenhower spoke up and said, we had nothing to do with this, et cetera, et cetera. And it turned out he was lying. And he almost resigned over it because he thought he'd lost the trust of the public. He thought he lost the trust of the American people. And it was too serious for him. And he came back, but he knew it gave the Soviets some leverage. And he was very unhappy about that too.